also, in addition to the meat stuff, I'll also talk about quickly and upcoming. Is it Kukoa? Oh yeah, it is Kokua, and that should be released for them mid to end October, somewhere in there, around there.
Oh, great!
They said that they're gonna. Well, when I talked to them last week about it, they said they would be start brewing it in the next week or so.
Oh, excellent! Good.
We'll stay out late to gastrobate and hang out with our friends. We'll share a few good microbrews, the good times never end. From seaside to the mountains, we'll travel many lands. Eateth of their pub cuisine and hear their local bands. We'll drink it from a bottle in a can or what's on tap. We'll rate each brew as we do with fairness and a map. Spirits are up, we'll fill our cup, the wind is in our sails. We'll drunkenly mix metaphors and travel hoppy trails.
Welcome back to Hoppy Trails, a show where two guys get together to tell you what they think about, different topics, which is really groundbreaking for a podcast, I understand.
Very groundbreaking.
Brand new. We've really revolutionized the field. Yeah.
It's incredible. I'm Nick.
And I'm Travis. And, today we're going to talk about a few things. And I don't know if we're going to fit it all in here, but we're going to try. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. But first, let's start off with the simple stuff. Nick, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking a Burning Barrel Trim Reaper. It's a little bit of an aged. We got it back in, I think, April or it was in May when we were down in California last. So It's definitely aged a little bit, I think, for the better. It's a dank West Coast IPA.
Yeah.
Triple IPA at that.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's why I'm drinking it in such a small glass, because I've split it with my lovely wife because I don't want to get too smashed here. But it's definitely gotten very much dankier. But I'm a fan of the dank, and it's quite nice. Although a bit of a slap to the face every sip you take. But for those that can be able to watch us, you'll probably see me make some occasional faces when I do take sips. So
yeah. What's the ABV on that bad boy?
10%. So
10%.
It's basically right at that starting line for triple IPAs.
Yes. Yeah, that's really getting in there. Okay. Yeah, triple IPA, there's definitely a lot of those. If you've been on our Discord server, you saw a bit of a discussion. There was some fellow who didn't know what he was talking about, but wrote a whole article about it anyway.
Not on our Discord server, just in an article.
Oh, yeah, no. We linked this artitle. Don't worry, everyone on our Discord server is knowledgeable about beer. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. But anyway, if you want to know more about that, definitely get onto our Discord server. Go check it out. There was some lively discussion about it. And this poor fellow, I don't know. I hope he loses his job writing articles. Just terrible opinion.
Damn, brutal.
Yeah. Oh, it's like that.
It really I just every word that I read, I just became more, not angered is the wrong words, but I guess frustrated. I was like, well, this guy doesn't even know what he's talking about.
Yes.
But it's okay. People are new to the industry. It's just when you're new to things and everything, you haven't tried a variety. And you start spouting off about stuff that you've never tried before. It's just, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah.
You start off with a curious mind. Don't start off with a lot of strong opinions. Just look. Yeah. All of us, our opinions, our views, the things we like, the things we don't like, it all grows and changes over time. So, just start off a little flexible and see where it takes you. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, to be fair, when I was that guy's age, I definitely, like, if I was trying out like a triple IPA, I probably would have, had similar feelings as well. A lot of the flavors that I love today in beer, I definitely didn't when I was younger. And everything's an acquired taste as you try different things and mature. So
yeah, absolutely. So we'll give him another shot in another 10 years when he's learned a couple of things,
when his frontal lobe has fully developed.
That's right.
But So yeah, no, this is still a very delicious beer. Burning Barrel always cranking out some great ones.
Yes.
But yeah, what are you drinking?
Well, I'm about to crack right here. This is something that probably none of you have seen. If you're on the internet, you've probably never seen anything about this. This is the Voodoo Ranger by New Belgium.
What is that?
I'd never heard of it.
Never heard.
It literally everywhere. Just whatever platform you're on, you're getting ads for the Voodoo Ranger right now. They are really pushing it hard. It's by New Belgium. New Belgium, they really came into my attention back in, God, I want to say the early 2000s is when I really noticed them because they had
Yeah.
Fat Tire.
Yep.
And it had been around, but it wasn't in wide distribution. And I
Here
remember
we are thinking like, wow, look at this great new thing. Meanwhile, it's been around for like 10 years.
It had already been around for like 10 years, but it was limited in scope. So, I mean, you couldn't really find it all the time. And I remember when I was in San Diego, there was a spot that it was this little dive bar, and the owner would drive to Arizona to buy Fat Tires and then bring them back, and he'd sell them for $3 a pop at the bar, which was a great deal to begin with. And so that was kind of, I guess almost the first exposure to that kind of like, oh, this is the rare and sought after kind of crafty beer. But anyway, the Voodoo Ranger is definitely no roots in Belgium at all. It's a juicy, hazy IPA, which is absolutely American, not Belgian. I'm going to crack this thing right now.
Ooh.
Okay.
That was sexy.
Yeah. Ooh. Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. You can immediately smell that. Wow. From a good 8 to 12 inches away, you can smell the hops right there. That's quite an aroma. I'm going to give this a pour. Let's see what we've got. Now, it's a little bit warmer than I generally keep them in the fridge because I've had it out for a little bit while Nick and I have been shooting the shit and figuring out what we were going to do today.
But
so let's
sometimes
see
that's
how
when you
it
get some
pours.
pretty damn good flavors when you get a warmed up beer.
Absolutely. And if you go to a lot of the world, they don't serve their beers as cold as we do because the
cellar
cold
temperature.
does, cellar temperature is where they go because the cold really does kind of mute some of those flavors and aromas. And they get a lot more volatile at warmer temperatures. Man, I'm holding this over my keyboard, hoping I don't get any overflow. All right, that'll do. And let's see, I'll hold this up for everybody. Look at that. That is a very light color. Definitely hazy.
Definition hazy.
Yep, no doubt about it, right? There's no frost on this glass. It's not that cold. That's just you can't see through it. That's just the haze.
Yeah.
Good head retention on there. You can see that, Nick. I've got a good inch, maybe inch and a quarter head retention there. It's holding up really nice. Good lacing, good structure on that. And we'll give this a little taste and see what we've got. Yeah, that's nice. That's definitely a good beer. That's really, it's a light, mild, hazy IPA. So it's not one that's really going to punch you in the face, but it's got all those crisp flavors. That's definitely one that, you could sit back and enjoy that kind of in the summer, lounging around. That'd be good with a lot of different meals too. It's 7.5%. So, right in there kind of on the higher, a little bit on the higher side for the IPA, but right in there with what we expect these days. I actually picked that because of a topic we're going to get into a little bit later, but wanted to, jump in and crack that bad boy and see what we have there. But good beer. I definitely recommend it. I know it's being plastered around everywhere. You see it as much as the, Coors Light advertisements, but it's a decent beer for what's become a large production
for sure
beer. It's
New
a good
Belgium's
beer.
always made some pretty solid beers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it's one that, a lot of times we talk about beers that you have to be in Oregon or California or somewhere on the West Coast to get a hold of them. This is one you can get anywhere right now. So, everybody who's listening, you can absolutely get it. It's a good, it's a good daily drinker if you're looking for something like that and a reasonable price. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what have you cooked recently?
Man, I just made some gyros, and as
for those of you unsure, it's the gyro gyro.
That's right. Do you remember when Jack in the Box back in the early 90s, they came out with one and I think I don't
Everybody
know if
called
just
them
people I
gyros.
knew called it a gyro or if Jack in the Box called it a gyro.
How do you say delicious in Greek?
Gyro.
Gyro.
Gyro. Gyro.
It was known to everyone I knew as a gyro.
I called it a gyro.
I called it a gyro. So did
And I
all
mean,
the adults
not
I
that
knew.
Euro doesn't sound cool, but like personally, gyro sounds cooler.
Yeah,
But-
yeah, it sounds cool. Sounds like Gyro's World of Terror, right? Which
Yeah.
was the big haunted house that came up every year in our
Maybe
area.
it was actually Euro's haunt of terror.
Yeah, it was a very Greek themed haunted house. Yeah, but yeah, made some gyros and some folks. I don't know if I talked about it on the show or if it's just something that I talked about on the Discord server. We have a county fair around here, the Monterey County Fair, and like many county fairs, there's a 4-H, which is where local, high school and junior high kids will raise animals for a competition. Then they're auctioned off and things like that. And some of the money is what you would. It's significantly more than you would expect to pay if you were to go buy the meat somewhere. But it's well raised. It's very good. It's loved. It's not your factory farmed. And a lot of that money goes to these kids to help them with college and things like that. So it's a good cause.
Yeah.
So anyway, I split a lamb with my neighbor. And so we got some ground and some chops and various things. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to make some gyros. So I just picked up the meat fresh this last weekend. So 2 pounds of fresh ground lamb, 2 pounds of Snake River Farms American Wagyu, which was honestly $2 a pound more than regular ground beef.
And
I
did
thought,
you
come
pick
on,
that
man.
up at the meatery, or did you order that from the website?
I grabbed it at Safeway of all places.
No kidding. Wow, that's cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Huh.
Safeway had it in those, the little square 1 pound packs.
You got fancy Safeway.
I'm telling you, man. The ground beef was going for $9 a pound, which is insanity. And then the Snake River Farms American Wagyu was $11 a pound. I thought, come on, I'm getting 2 pounds for $4 extra. I'm getting the Snake River Farms.
Bro,
I'm already
I
overpaying.
didn't
for
realize
beef.
it was that expensive down there. That's insanity.
It's rough here right now, man. It's rough.
Dude.
Yeah.
Because like even at Costco, man, I'm complaining about the price at Costco, which is pretty much usually the cheapest, and it's like ends up being like $6.24 a pound.
Yeah.
For the not the bulk that they sell, but the whatever grass-fed stuff.
Yeah, that comes in the
that comes
3
packaged in the
1.25 pounders or whatever.
Yeah, 1.33 pounds. And so
yeah, 1.33.
I was like, damn, this is getting expensive.
Yeah.
So I started looking around, and there was like a local farm nearby that's open during, summer season, selling, everything that they grow. Well, I guess they had raised some cattle, and they had it all processed into ground beef. And so they were selling a 36-pound case at $4.99 a pound.
Wow.
So I was like, yep, I'll jump on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish I had bought 2 cases, because then I just called back like last week. They're like, no, we're sold out of all of our ground beef. And I was like,
wow,
man. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it is what it is. We eventually found another place for $4.99, which I'll talk about shortly. But yeah. I just, that's insane that it's like
beef prices are
$9.99
insanity. Oh yeah. It's insanity right now. It's absolutely crazy.
Wow.
I feel like there were certain market factors that drove things up. And then when those market factors stopped, nothing came down. And so
yeah,
just stuck overpaying for meat. Yeah, it's rough. But yeah, so did 2 pounds of the Snake River Farms American Wagyu, which was very delicious, lots of good fat in there, looked really good color. And then the 2 pounds of the ground lamb. Did that with, as I've talked about before here, take the yellow or brown onion, mince it up in the food processor, wrap it up in a cheesecloth, and then squeeze all the liquid out of it. And then I take the onion that's had the liquid squeezed out, I mix that into the meat with a bunch of spices and garlic and a stick of butter in there to add some fat and texture to it when you're mixing it. Now, here's what you do with that water from the onion. I take yogurt that I'm going to make tzatziki with, right?
Yeah.
And the night before, I put that in a cheesecloth lined strainer over a bowl, and then I put the whole carton of yogurt in there, and I put that in the fridge. Overnight, it drains out approximately the same amount of whey as you have onion liquid from the onion. So I pour that whey off, and then I dump the onion liquid in when I'm mixing it in with the lemon and the mint and the dill and the cucumber and what have you.
Dude.
And so you end up with a really thick tzatziki, but it's still got that onion flavor. Right.
Yeah.
And so
Where did you
that
learn
makes it
that
really,
from?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't remember where I learned that from, but I heard it somewhere and I thought, I'm going to give this a try. And the first time I tried it out, I thought, this is brilliant. I know a lot of people like a runnier tzatziki, but when I'm doing gyro sandwiches, if you have that runnier tzatziki,
It's getting
you
everywhere.
put it on, it's
It just
everywhere. It
squirts
drips
out, yeah.
out and it's a mess and you don't even eat most of it. But with this, it's thick. You spread it on that pita and it stays there. And
For sure.
it's really nice.
I bet
So
that is fantastic. Damn.
I did that. I ended up with, obviously a huge amount, 4 pounds of meat plus some additionals. So what I did is I grabbed some bamboo skewers. Nick, I sent you a picture. I took some of the meat, kind of formed it around the skewers. I did 4 of those, and each skewer is a whole gyro sandwich right there. So I did 1 skewer, a little bit of hummus, some tzatziki, tomato, red onion, cucumber, and a bunch of chopped mint in there. And one of those was a meal, and I haven't even cracked into the amount of meat that I have. So I pulled some out for tomorrow, threw some in the freezer, and man, that's going to be
very nice.
That's going to be a heck of a set of meals there. Yeah.
There's one more thing that I would have added into that.
Yeah.
A little bit of tahini.
Yes. And that's one of those things that tahini is great to have.
Yes.
If you're going to be using it, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like once you buy some tahini, you're committed to making some Greek food for a little while or some Middle Eastern food for a little while. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But man, that tahini, you're right, man. It's got that kind of nutty, toasty flavor that it adds. You can't really get anywhere else.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Unfortunately, I was addicted to it for a bit.
Yeah.
Not just the tahini, but sesame seed in general. Like there's this puff sweet thing in Israel called bamba, and it's like cheese puffs.
Okay.
But they're peanut butter puffs.
Really?
Yeah. And then they have this bamba halva.
Yeah.
Halva being like a sesame filling that's like basically it just tastes like tahini.
Yeah.
And it's this peanut butter puff that looks like those little what were they think? They look like a combo. You remember combos where it was like a little round cylinder with a filling to it? It was like a pretzel snack item thing. That was actually sold in the U.S. I mean, I think it was more of like a Midwest or Southern thing. But
okay.
Anyways, it's like a little round cylinder of peanut butter puff, and then it has a sesame paste, filling to it.
Yeah.
So it's like a peanut butter and sesame flavor. Oh, dude.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That sounds really good.
I'll see if I can find some on Amazon while I'm down south, and I can send them off to you. But they're really tasty, dangerous.
Yeah.
They also make one with a hazelnut filling as well in the peanut butter puff. So
yeah, man, hazelnut is so good.
They're dangerous. Yeah. But anyways,
yeah. Well, what have you been cooking, Nick? What have you gotten into?
I haven't really been cooking. Well, I haven't really really cooking anything much, just because I've been kind of on, eating a healthier lifestyle. So a lot of the stuff that I'm doing is pretty basic and everything.
Yeah.
But I did the second pastrami. I talked about it in the last episode that we made some sandwiches and stuff.
Pastrami watch, yeah. Pastrami watch.
Pastrami watch.
Yeah, pastrami watch. So that was we did those sandwiches. I sliced up the flat portion of the brisket that I made the pastrami out of. And I still had vacuum sealed in the fridge the point of the brisket that was all done up. So
Yeah.
today I busted out my little meat slicing machine, and I got some nice little 1/8 inch slices of pastrami. I would
Oh
say
yeah.
about a total about 4.5, 5 pounds.
Yeah.
And I vacuumed up some half-pound servings, vacuum sealed it, and getting ready to distribute to a few people once we go head south. So
Yes. Yes. And heading south is coming soon. It's coming
yes,
very soon.
very soon. So
That's
we leave in
right.
a couple days. Day before this, you will hear this episode.
That's right. Yeah. By the time everyone hears this, you'll be already southward.
Yes, I will be. So looking forward to it, and bringing down a lot of goodies for you, buddy.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Now, Nick, I think we may have talked about before. I generally, if I'm going to be doing like corned beef pastrami, if I'm going to be curing a brisket, oftentimes I will. I mean, unless I'm doing a big party. If I'm doing a big party, whole briskets in there. We're doing, St. Patty's Day, 3 whole briskets. That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
But when I'm doing like just for myself, oftentimes I'll split, and the flat I'll use for corned beef, and then the point I'll use for pastrami. And I don't think I've ever used the flat for pastrami. And so how was the difference between the flat and the point as far as how it turned out for the pastrami? Because you used the whole thing.
Yeah. So, and the flat, I mean, obviously the flat's not going to have as much fat. And this, in particular with this brisket, it actually had some nice intramuscular fat.
Yeah.
But not nearly as much as that's showed up in the slices of the point that I did today. Like it's got some nice fat that when you go and throw it on a griddle to make a sandwich or whatever, just to heat it up, that
Yeah.
fat's going to render down real quick, and it's going to have some amazing flavor.
Oh, beautiful.
But no, with the flat, because I just wanted to do it quick and dirty, and I just used my meat slicing knife. And so in this case they were more like 1/4 inch thick
Yeah.
slices, and because it's the flat, they're long and thin. It actually worked out well in terms of still stacking on a sandwich and everything. But I mean,
Yeah.
same flavor. And like I said, because of the intramuscular fat that I had, I'm sure it's probably not come as close to what the point is, because the point's just going to have fat as flavor, and it's got a
Yeah.
lot of intramuscular fat within those slices that I did today. So it'll definitely have a more savory bite to it. But
Excellent.
still, the flat was still amazing. So but yeah,
I'm definitely I'm definitely looking forward to throwing some of that down on the flat top. Maybe a little bit of sauerkraut grilled on the side. Throw that down. A little bit of Swiss cheese on top. Either some,
Yep.
maybe like a Russian rye or a sourdough on there. A little bit of mustard, and just have like just a
Hell
nice
yeah.
hot pastrami sandwich there. That sounds delightful. I can't wait.
So, and what I'm not even reserving any from the point for myself.
Wow.
So I ate little bits that were kind of fell off when I was in the process of putting it through the slicer.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. Everything from that point is getting given to people. So
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. That's generosity right there.
But
That's generosity.
the next one, next pastrami experiment, I think I'm going to go with a different cut of meat. Just so because brisket, typically you're going to have to shave off a lot of fat that before you do anything to it, just so that you
Yes.
get that brine penetration.
Yeah.
I'm looking at different cuts. I was originally looking at eye round, but I realized it doesn't have enough intramuscular fat to it.
Yeah, real lean.
Yeah, but chuck roast is going to be a good one. And
Yeah.
with the average weight of a chuck roast being around 3.5, 4 pounds, I can
Sure.
do a few chuck roasts at the same time, and produce a lot more pastrami. So
Yeah. And with your chuck roast, you're gonna have a more consistent more consistency throughout versus a point in the
Correct.
flat with the transition
Exactly.
muscle
Yep.
and all of that. Yeah, that's actually really interesting. And I've seen some people who are smoking a chuck roast like a brisket.
Yes.
And, it's like, hey,
Poor
if
man's
you,
brisket.
it's poor man's brisket. And if you can't make as much, or you got a small smoker, whatever it is,
Yep.
no worries, go that route.
Or
And I
doing
love
burnt
chuck
ends
roast.
doing burnt ends with the chuck roast
Yes.
as well.
Yes,
So
absolutely. So yeah, I'm interested to see how it turns out. I'm like, the crazy thing is when you first mentioned that, I think like my thought whenever I hear chuck roast goes to like a pot roast, right? And so I immediately think like, oh man, the chuck roast, isn't that going to fall apart? But no, that's just because you're cooking it in that wet method. There's no reason that you couldn't cook it in the similar style and get pretty similar texture.
well, that when that wet method is, you're essentially like braising it, and you're taking that to a much higher temperature, at which point that fat has rendered down so much that it's going to start falling apart like that.
Yeah.
Where with the pastrami, the way I'm doing it is, I put it on the smoker and take the internal temp to 149.
Yeah.
And then I take it off and I cut it in half and I vacuum seal each section. And then I throw it in the sous vide that's set at 149 degrees.
Yeah.
So that meat will never get above 150, 149, 150 degrees.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's still very cooked. Plus, it's also been brined for 12 plus days.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think the chuck roast will turn out pretty well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
I'll probably do 2 to start out with, but I have a feeling it's going to come out really well. And if that's the case, then the next round I'm going to do like 4 or 5 at the same time.
Yes.
And I'm just going to start shipping pastrami everywhere to everybody.
Let me tell you, man, you get a.
So if you're a patron, I'll send you pastrami.
That's right. at the trail guide level, like Carlos. Yeah. Yeah. Listen, dude, we appreciate every one of our patrons, but if you're at that $3 level, don't expect a pastrami to show up on your door. Let's be real.
I might be able to make it work.
One chuck roast pastrami. Yeah. Yeah, man. Oh man. I'm just thinking with those chuck roasts too. You could definitely do the, brine barrel in a 5-gallon bucket. You could throw a whole bunch of them in there and get those bad boys going. Oh yeah.
For sure. So I have, I have a nice little selection of local meat markets, but there's been one that I discovered recently. Well, it actually just opened up recently. But it's about like 45 minutes away in another town, towards the Cascade Mountains, in the town of Sweet Home. But I love their market, super clean. But they just opened recently, but such a great little space. And then they sell some, other local vendor like sauces and other little wares and whatnot.
Yeah.
But they've had some excellent meats. They've got skirt steak from there recently. We did fajitas with that. Tenderness is amazing.
Yeah.
I've gotten some great New York strip steaks from there. My last week when we went on a motorcycle ride with my parents, and my mom got some sirloin tip steaks or whatever like that.
Oh yeah.
And so she cut those up today and she made stew for dinner. That again, great meat all around. They have huge freezer cases, one for beef, one for pork, one for lamb.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, and we found out that, cause we're looking around for ground beef for the dogs, and, this place also, you just have to buy 20 pounds minimum, and it's $4.99 a pound.
Yeah,
so
that's really great.
And it's
that's really great.
85-15 blend. So, local meat, and we're stoked about it. So,
yeah. Now you said you did a skirt steak for fajitas.
Yeah.
How'd you cook that skirt steak?
So we did it actually an interesting way of the fajitas. So, the skirt steak, it was, just all pre-cut across the grain, thin slices. And then we put it on a foil wrap baking sheet, oil all over it, seasoning on that. And then the peppers and onions were all cut up and also thrown on the same baking sheet with some seasoning on them, and then put them in the oven for 385 for like, it was like 25-30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, real easy. One pan.
Hell yeah.
30 minutes. That's not bad. That's really not bad.
For sure.
Absolutely. Oh, that's the type of thing you can make on a weekday. No problem.
Oh yeah. And then we're using those carb balance tortillas or whatever. There's a couple different ones that are keto friendly or whatever.
Sure.
They have like the little taco size, street taco size tortillas that are net zero carb that we've been using a lot. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty tasty, pretty healthy meal.
Oh, that's great. That's great. How's the flavor and the texture on those with the street taco size
What do you mean? Oh, well,
on those on the tortillas?
so they are flour tortillas.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I like them. I mean, like I said, we use them a lot. We make little breakfast tacos a lot with fried egg and a few slices of turkey
Yeah.
for breakfast, and add some avocado stuff, the holy guacamole avocado stuff from Costco.
Sure.
And we love them. They're awesome. I mean,
Yeah, that's
you wouldn't even know that they're a low carb or whatever tortilla, like especially like they're called net zero. Those are the street taco style ones. I think they're actually, they are net zero because it's like 9 grams of carbs but 9 grams of fiber.
yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know one of the things that's always been difficult for me is finding good healthy tortillas because I mean, as everybody knows, man, the flour tortilla, corn tortilla, they're delicious. Not great for you if you eat a whole bunch of them. And there's all
Yep.
kinds of substitutes and alternatives out there. And they're like, oh, well, me. I had those folios, which were a cheese, basically like a tortilla shaped
Yeah, I
blend
like
of
those
cheeses.
folios. Yeah.
Those are really great for doing like a wrap, like a lunchtime wrap, some cold
For
cuts,
sure.
some pickles and like that. Great for that. But as far as coming down to like, making a burrito and tacos and like that, I've tried the ones that are like egg whites and they're not bad. They're all good for what they are. But when you're trying to replace a tortilla, you've got to have something that's more like a tortilla. And so what do you say? These
For
are
sure.
a lot more like they meet your
Oh,
needs of
no,
the
they are
tortilla.
100%. You wouldn't even, if I handed it to you and you didn't see the packaging,
Yeah.
you would 100% think it's just a regular old flour tortilla.
Oh, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great because so many nights the easy meal is doing some kind of taco fajita burrito, something like that. That's such an easy meal. You grab some stuff, you cook it, you throw it in a tortilla of some kind, and you're good to go. Ooh,
Yep.
what's that sound? What's that sexy noise you just made there, Nick?
That's a double Nelson, baby.
Oh, double Nelson, baby.
Yes.
That's a heck of a beer there. Let me tell you.
Oh, shit. I'm spilling on myself. What the hell is going on here?
Getting all wet and sticky over there, Nick?
It is. It's all over my leg now. Oh,
Running down your
wells.
leg. It's the whole thing. We're about to get an adult rating on this show.
Yeah.
If
No
if we
kidding.
didn't have one already.
Oh my gosh. Oh wow. That's oh well. Not a lot was lost, people. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's just super absorbed into my, good thing I was wearing some jogging pants. So
There you go.
instead of jersey shorts, because then they would just gone right through to my leg.
Yeah. Yeah. Good jogging
Nice
short.
haze there.
Absorb some beer. You can chew on them later for some extra flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that color.
I'm so glad that I let it warm up.
Ah, tell me about it, Nick. Tell us about
Gosh. Flavor explosion.
it.
And I'm pretty sure this one was also made back in May or June, or not June, April. Oh wow, actually June 1st it was canned up.
June 1st. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
trying to think which trip did you come
How
down that
did-
we got those?
Well, because we were there for the month of May,
Yeah.
and we left June, the end of the first week of June or something like that. But if
Yeah.
that was canned on June 1st, I don't know how we would have gotten that.
Well, I think maybe that was when we went to the Alvarado on Main, and they were selling it right out of
Yeah.
the case there. They were brand spanking new.
Wow. Yeah, they were brand spanking new. Well, that aged nicely. 3 months now.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm glad that I let it sit here on the desk for the last 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, maybe we should take a break.
Yeah, not a bad idea.
Yeah,
We could definitely
come
take
back
a break right
and
now.
we'll come back from a break and we'll talk about arable, and then
Yeah.
we'll talk about double IPAs and triple IPAs and all the I's.
Yeah.
PAs.
Little deep dive into those multi-letter Initialisms.
Isms. Alrighty. Trim Reaper getting to me. Cheers.
We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Dane, trekking along the Hoppy Trail from Seattle. We may not like sunlight, but we do like beer. Today I'm at the Beverage Place Pub in West Seattle. It's a fantastic spot with over 30 rotating taps and a wide variety of specialty bottles. Like proper West Coasters, we love our IPAs, but we also enjoy a wide variety of other kinds of beer. Whether you like barrel-aged, barleys, sours, Beverage Place has it all. Check them out. Right now I'm drinking a Personal Space. It's a juicy double IPA from Vale Brewing in Virginia. It's got some great tropical notes that's perfect for those end-of-week vibes. So if your trek along the Hoppy Trail brings you to Seattle, be sure to check out Beverage Place Pub and grab yourself a pint of hoppy deliciousness.
I'm going to go ahead and start it. They can cut out whatever they need to when we get going. All right, I am here at the Lake Lure Dance Festival, previously known as the Dirty Dancing Festival, and I'm with Mary. Mary and I have been talking all about acting and modeling and all those exciting things, but she is also married to one of the co-owners of the Chimney Rock Brewery, and I'm having the Swayze Hazy, or
yes,
Hazy
you
Swayze.
Are. It's a Swayze Hazy.
Right, it's so delicious. 5% of all of the ticket sales for beer today are going to pancreatic cancer research in honor of Patrick Swayze.
Absolutely.
And Chimney Rock Brewery has made a delicious, it's an IPA, right?
It's an IPA, yeah. It's
Tell us about it.
Our Swayze Hazy IPA is juicy, so delicious, it's crisp, and it's my favorite beer out of all our beers. I always say after 3, you're going to start moving like Swayze, and your girlfriend's going to call you. Your girlfriend's going to call you Romeo. You know, hey Romeo. But yeah, it's a really great beer. We also have our Eagle Rock Pale Ale, which is a nice lighter beer, and our Current Mistake Sour, which has a great name. I love that name. We also have a sweet apple cider here, and so far the cider's killing it, the Swayze's killing it, the Pale Ale's killing it. And a couple sours. Usually it's the ladies that like the sours.
Right.
But yeah, it's been a great day. Weather's awesome. Good food. People are chilling. Can't beat it. It's a great place. Right. I'm glad I'm here today.
And we're going to hop out here and dance soon.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm totally ready. I want to get a picture with one of the fake Patrick Swayze big cutouts.
Right.
I really want.
There's lots of those running around.
Yeah, I want to get a picture with him. So that's my goal of the day.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for talking to me.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Did you ever get the feeling that there was more to this world than meets the eye?
Ghosts, aliens, age, big feet, interdimensional spirits, cryptids, North Dakota. Well, neither have we.
So come join us as we uncover the true stories and plausible explanations behind famous paranormal urban myths.
From the perspective of skeptics.
But it's funny. We promise it's funny.
So join us in the Least Haunted Podcast, because the only thing that's haunted here is you.
Ah!
Are you a new parent trying to find your way?
Or are you thinking of becoming a new parent and want to know what to expect?
Or do you not plan on having kids but just want to know what it's like?
Nobody without kids wants to know what it's like.
I'm Travis.
I'm Stephanie.
And we have just the show for you.
You, Me, and Squeeze, a new podcast where we explore the challenges of being new parents and everything we learn along the way. We'll talk about our experiences, different parenting philosophies and trends, giving our own perspectives, and talking about what worked for us and what didn't.
Let's face it, a lot has changed since our parents and grandparents were raising kids. So we're all kind of figuring out this new frontier for ourselves, and it can feel pretty lonely. So come join us for the journey where sometimes we'll laugh, sometimes we'll cry, but we'll always be real with you.
You, Me, and Squee. It beats listening to your childless aunt give her 2 cents.
Or any of your aunts, really.
Drunken mix metaphors and travel hoppy trails.
Welcome back. Those were some trail reports and likely some promos. I think if I know future me, I put in 2 trail reports. I'm certain of it.
I think future Travis would do that too.
I think so.
It's going to end up being like an hour and a half episode, I think.
It might be. It might be. We've got, like I said in the intro, man, we've got a lot of stuff to cover. We can either just half-ass it, or we can just spend the time. And you know what? Look, man, you got a long Friday drive. Get as much as you can on the way to work. Get the rest on your way home.
Yeah, that translates to about a 1 day of Bay Area commute. So
yeah, that translates to one direction of Bay Area commute. Let's be honest, man. And that's if you're going down the street.
Jeez, if you're spending 3 hours of your day in your car,
can you imagine?
From work? No, thank you.
There are people who live in my neighborhood who commute up to the Bay Area on a daily basis. I know it. It's just insanity.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Hard note.
Yeah.
Remote only.
Look, I have no problem with a road trip if I'm going somewhere, right? I don't want to spend that much time in my car to and from work. That's insane.
Yeah. For real. For real.
But for all of you who are out there spending that amount of time in your car going to and from work,
props to you.
Hope you're listening to Hoppy Trails.
We do. We hope for your sake you're listening to our luscious voices.
That's right.
Tickling the inside of your eardrums.
Sultry tones. Sometimes Nick's beard brushing against his microphone. Yeah.
Oh man, what are we gonna do? I'm definitely feeling that triple and double now.
Yeah, it's good when we've got a double and triple as the topic of our show.
Huh? Speaking of Imperial, I had an interesting beer last Friday. Met up with some colleagues from my old team from work, and I said, they were like, "Hey, we want to meet up again. Let's do a meetup." And I was like, "Cool, let's meet at Arable." And they're like, "What's that?" I was like, "It's a semi-new brewery that has some amazing, great beer and lots of seating. And it's something you should all check it out." So we all met there, and thankfully they still had it on tap, so I was able to try it out because I didn't get to try it out the previous time, which was our first time. And it was I believe I briefly talked about it in the last episode. The Imperial Kolsch. It's called All the Reflexes. Imperial Kolsch, you might ask. What is that?
Yeah. You can see on my face, I'm inquisitive.
Well, just like, Imperial would imply to an IPA or a stout, it's implies an elevated ABV. In this particular case, it's 6.5% for a Kolsch, which usually you'd be hard pressed to find Kolsches that are above 5%. I feel like most Kolsches that I've had been in the 4 to 5% range, which is expected because of the it's similar to lagering and everything at the really cold temperature, so you're not going to get that much of an alcohol content out of it. And what a great
the colder temperature, not as active of a yeast, but also given the the clean crisp where the yeast isn't really contributing a lot, but as you said, 4 to 5%, man. I can't imagine a Kolsch outside of that.
But there it was in my hand and going into my mouth. And it was a great Kolsch, super crisp. You wouldn't even know it was 6.5%. It's like a silent killer. It drinks like a 4% beer, and you would, easily crush down 5 or 6 of them, and then you're on the floor. But no, such a great beer. From what they told me, it was as Bob Ross would refer to as a happy little accident. Pertaining to a temperature increase, which would explain the higher ABV.
Really?
Yeah. So, I really would like to get them on here so we could talk to them about what they're all about and everything, and potentially give us a deeper story behind the Imperial Kolsch. So, I'm hoping that when we come back in a home in a couple weeks. I'm gonna meet up. We're gonna go over there, and then we'll start talking logistics with them and getting them onto the show. Maybe it'll be something I just go down there with my gear and we
Yeah,
record in person and get you on remotely, or we'll figure something
sure.
out. But
Oh, that sounds great. I'd love to hear from them.
for
Absolutely.
sure, for sure. So yeah. And then I had asked them about what was it, the Kokua
Oh, yes.
beer, and so they had told me that they're going to start that in the next week or so.
That's right.
And that should
Arable's
be,
one of the breweries that's doing the Kakua project.
yeah, so that should be on tap somewhere mid to end October, somewhere in there. So yeah, looking forward to that as well.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, and the Kokua project again, started by Maui Brewing. They've got a 501c3 they're working with. It's one of the collaborations that you see from time to time. That they basically they come up with the recipe, they send it out. A bunch of breweries also make it, and proceeds go back to helping victims of the Maui fire. So it's
Yes.
great. I love that Arable is participating. There are so many breweries, like we said before. Go on, check out the Kakua project, see if there's a local brewery near you. If there is, find out when they're going to be tapping it, buy some of the beer. And if your local brewery's not doing it, go in and say, hey, what the heck, man? I'd love to buy some beers from you, but you need to brew this one, you know?
Yep. You can find a
Yeah.
link to it on our Linktree site as well. So hoppytrailspod.com.
Hoppytrailspod.com.
Hoppytrailspod.com. So yeah. No, it was good to see those guys again. And yeah, what an amazing Kolsch. Like I said, you wouldn't even know it's 6.5%. So crisp and clean. Very effervescent. A lot of bubbles coming up from the bottom. It's just a great looking and a great drinking beer.
Oh, that's so good. And nice, clear and just right, light color, all of
Yes,
that.
absolutely. Yes. I wish I had taken a picture of it, but I didn't, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get my hands on it again. We'll see.
Yeah.
But
that would be great. I'd love to see it. Man, I'd love to taste it, but I'm probably not going to be there in time for it. But who knows? Maybe they take it. It's one of those they say, "Hey, we had a mistake here, but it's one we love, so we're going to keep doing it." That'd be pretty cool.
Definitely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far, like all their beers have been amazing. Great job from their brewer Chris, and then Cam and Amy, the owners, and I believe Chris is also owner. But no, great people and great beer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't wait to hear more from them. Either we'll talk to them together, and Nick, maybe you go and it's a man on the scene type of thing.
Oh no, I'm not doing this without you. You have to be. You got to be a part of this. There's no. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Maybe I'll hop a quick flight because if they've got some of that beer, I'd love to taste it.
I think I have some Southwest points.
Yes.
But yeah. So I guess from Imperial Kolsch to Imperial IPAs.
Imperial IPAs, yeah, or the famed double IPA that we all know and love. It is becoming hugely popular. And again, earlier we started out by talking about the Voodoo Ranger that we're just seeing everywhere. Now, again, New Belgium, when they started out, they were the sought after fat tire. You couldn't get it. People had to, cross state lines and bring it back, and it was a whole thing. New Belgium now is everywhere. They are throughout the United States. I don't think there's a place in the US where you can't get New Belgium. And their origin was that kind of Belgian style, right? And it wasn't, 100% true Belgian like that, but they were doing a lot more of that malty, flavorful, getting some of the esters off of the yeast and things like that, and making some real full-bodied, good flavored beers. They're into the, the IPAs and the double IPAs, as we're seeing with the Voodoo Ranger and I'm going to hold this one up here, the Voodoo Ranger Imperial IPA. So everybody who's watching this on video, you can see it. That's the can. And here's the deal. This can, this is not the 16 ounce that we know and love from our Forzies. This is the 19.2 fluid ounce, which we're starting to see more. Folks are calling this a stovepipe. Have you heard that, Nick?
Yes.
The
Stovepipe. Like
stovepipe.
stovepipe hat. Yeah. The
I
Lincoln hat.
I heard it today for the first time. Stovepipe. First time I've
Oh,
heard it
okay.
referred to, but that's this
Yeah.
19.2 ounce can,
Yeah.
which we're starting to see more.
I mean, they put
just
energy
crazy.
drinks in them. Why not beer?
Why not beer? Why not something good and good
Yeah.
for you?
Right?
That's right.
At least
So-
put something in you that's whatever percentage water instead of unknown energy drink garbage.
Yellow
sugars.
number whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yellow, blue, green, and red 40 through 60.
People should not consume things those colors. Let me just lay that out there.
No
right?
colors. Only natural colors. Only natural flavors.
That's right. But this New Belgium Voodoo Ranger that everybody's seeing advertised all over the place, it's 9%. 9% alcohol. Okay. Now, how did we get here? Nick, you and I remember a day when these did not exist.
Yeah.
These didn't used to be a thing.
It
Now,
was
I'm
like
going to-
6.5%. Wow.
Yes. And if you wanted anything higher than that, you were looking at like a barley wine, right? Which we discussed with Julio quite a
Yeah.
bit.
Yep.
And, Bigfoot was my introduction to the barley wine. That was a Sierra Nevada.
Yep.
And that I'm not a fan of. I used to drink it because I was a kid and wanted the high percentage, but I never liked it. I know there's a lot of good barley wines. I haven't had them yet. Nick, you and Julio have.
Yeah.
But again, this did not exist. In our lifetime is when this became a thing. Well, how did it come about? So here's the interesting thing. Nick and I, we're out here on the West Coast. And for us, there are certain beers and certain breweries that paved the way for this. Okay. Now, the IPA, the India Pale Ale, there's a lot of story and history and how did it come about and why and all of this and the voyage to the Indies and all of that. Listen, I'm not getting into that because we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is the American style. The American style Pale Ale, IPA, all of that is so different from the origins of the other original styles, the European styles, that really there's not a link. And so there's no point in talking about one in reference to the other. They're not.
Yeah.
And so when I think of the origins of the IPA and the double and like that, it obviously goes back to the Pale Ale, right? Because the IPA is the India Pale Ale or the Imperial Pale Ale. And so it comes from the Pale Ale. And the American Pale Ale, the exemplar that I use, is the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
Mm-hmm.
Were there Pale Ales before? Maybe. American Pale Ales. Were there some on the East? I don't know. But Sierra Nevada came out with their Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. And I believe that beer set the parameters of a category and a style. Nick, other than the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, who came first? Anybody that comes to your mind that set
Not
the standard first?
I can only think of ones that came after. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, are there ones that are different now? Yeah, it's been, 40 years, 30, 40 years. So yeah, it's changed and what have you. But the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale is still going strong, still an excellent beer, and still one that anybody can hold up and say, this is a Pale Ale, and this is one that you can compare other Pale Ales to.
yeah.
So what are we talking about with the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale? We're talking about malty, right? It's got a malty character. There's a lot maltier beers, but as far as beers go these days with your IPAs and like that, definitely not as much malt as the Sierra Nevada had. So it had that malty character. It had kind of a medium bitterness, right? More bitter than a lot of doubles that we see today, right? Not the most bitter, but it had that bitterness to balance out the malt.
Mhm.
And it was using predominantly Cascade hops, Pacific Northwest, right? The Cascade hop from the PNW had citrusy, piney, resinous. And when I say citrusy, it's not what people think of today because we didn't have Citra back then. And Citra was that hop that really came on and said, hey, this is what citrus hop character is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And really kind of blew everyone away. Before that, there were a lot of hops that we were saying, this is a citrusy hop. Totally different by today's standards. But that Cascade hop had that citrus, really piney, really resinous, slightly citrus.
Yeah.
Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, 5.6%. What's the range for a Pale Ale? 4.5 to just over 6.2.
Yep.
Sierra Nevada, right in the middle there, right? What do we see today? A whole range. Sometimes people want to go more sessionable, so they'll go closer to the 4.5, right? Sometimes people want to call it a pale ale because, they say, oh, I don't want to be an IPA bro, so this is a pale ale, but they're pushing that 6.2, 6.3, 6.4 and just fudging it. Listen, That's a session IPA, but come on, who cares what we call it, right? End of the day, if it's good. So we'll see a lot of variation, but that's the one that really set the standard. Okay. Now, where did we go from there? Then we go to the IPA. And the IPA, again, Nick, you and I were West Coast. I don't know what was going on in the East, but I really feel like the West Coast, as far as the hoppy beers, we led the way. And then it kind of filtered west, maybe jumped across the Midwest and Mideast and jumped onto the East Coast and kind of came in from the sides. But I feel like California and the Pacific Northwest really set it. And so when I think of an IPA, I think of the one tap handle that you went into a place and it said IPA on it. And that's all it said. And that's the Lagunitas IPA. That's the exemplar. That is who I believe set the standard for the category, was that
Definitely.
Lagunitas IPA.
Yeah.
Nick, you agree?
I agree. Absolutely.
Can you think
Back
of
when-
any...
Back when IPAs were still, had some maltiness to it.
Yes.
This was before another IPA style.
Yes.
That, because of the West Coast. But back when, IPAs were still malty, and that was Lagunitas IPA. That was the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. It still had some maltiness to it.
Yeah.
Another one I think that I think we're probably going to touch on next. Well, in a little bit. That still retains a little bit of maltiness.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we started anyways. I'll let
Yeah.
you
Well, and it was that maltiness, because what a lot of people who maybe weren't drinking beers back then, what you see now is there's a lot of variety in kind of malt character for a variety of ABVs. But what we were doing back then is, again, we had hops with a lot of alpha acids, and the alpha acid is what gives you that bitter kick in your face.
Totally.
And so when you started boosting these things up, you needed more hop to come in, but then you needed more malt sweetness to balance out that bitterness. And so they went up together. And so they were using a lot of these malts, like your caramel malts, right? You were using various things like that. So you were getting more of those maybe copper and amber and golden colors, and you were getting more of that malt color character, like with the Lagunitas IPA. Now, the Lagunitas IPA coming in with crystal malt, caramel malt, and Munich malts. And so it was giving it, as you said, real strong malt character. And then they were coming in with C hops. And C hops back in the day meant Cascade, Centennial, Chinook. And those hops were coming out of the Pacific Northwest, baby.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And now, as far as C hops, people have added in Citra into that mix, because Citra's coming out of the PNW also. It's being grown up there. And so it's been added in because it's got a similar style, although more citrusy. But back then, it was those three. Those were the C hops: Cascade, Centennial, Chinook. This IPA, 51 IBUs, right? That's bitter, depending on what you're looking at.
Yeah.
For us back then, not so bitter. We were thinking, yeah, this is good. It's middle of the road. It's well balanced with the malt and everything like that. And that's when we get into, what is the West Coast style? Has that bitterness, has that maltiness. It's all coming together for a very big kick in the face. And the Lagunitas IPA, 6.2%. 6.2%. That's a big jump up from the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the range on the style guide? 5.5 to 7.5 is your IPA, right? So not on the top end by any means. Closer to the bottom end, 6.2, but definitely set the standard. And a lot of beers came after that. Now, hold on, sorry, I'm just pulling a couple of props together here. So that's the IPA. And the IPA has changed and grown and everything, and especially in recent years. But the Lagunitas IPA has been around for, again, what, 30 years, Nick? More than that, right? It's been around forever.
Yeah. I think they started in 93.
93.
So we are this year 30 years.
30 years.
Yes. 30
Yeah.
years.
So it's been around a long time. It set the standard. Things have changed from there, but it is still a very good go-to IPA. Right? If I'm ever at a place and there's kind of some mediocre beers they've got a Lagunitas, I'll crack one of those. No problem. It's an easy go-to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I haven't had Lagunitas IPA in probably a good 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's because usually whenever I went out somewhere, there was, whatever local craft beers available. So
yeah,
that's obviously what I was going with. But
Oh, yeah.
I agree. If it came down, like if I was at a place and like, all I had was a few options of just Bud or Coors or whatever.
Sure.
I'm going to go with the Lagunitas.
That's it. You want a Coors Light or a White Claw or, one of the Bud Light margaritas or a Lagunitas.
Butterita.
Yeah, exactly. It's an easy one. Take the Lagunitas all day. No problem.
Yeah. Pass on the butt.
Well, and, the interesting thing is also at that time, so many of the craft breweries, it was, you look at Sierra Nevada. Sierra Nevada wasn't producing a double. They later much later, came out with Torpedo, which was their, extra IPA, which, or maybe their extra pale, I think it is, which was pushing up kind of on the border of IPA. But really a lot of the other breweries were focusing on, hey, here's our downtown brown. Here's our brown sugar ale. Here's our wheat. Here's our this. Here's our that. Those were the other things. And so Lagunitas, really, if you wanted an IPA, that's what you had. Not a lot of places were even turning it out.
For sure.
And then it started to pick up. Then where do we go from there? Well,
where do we go?
This man named Vinny, crazy man,
was it
out of Russian
my cousin
River.
Vinny?
I wish it was my cousin Vinny. Let me tell you, man, this guy was my cousin. I'd be doing a lot better. Vinny at Russian River comes out with Pliny the Elder. And Pliny the Elder is a double IPA. And it is very different from the double IPAs we see today. Yes. And it set the standard. Again, it was the one, and ask anybody across the country. Everyone has an opinion about it. If you're in California, a lot of people have the luxury to poo-poo it and look down. Oh, Pliny the Elder. Oh, that's old school. There's so many better ones these days, yada, yada. Ask anybody outside of the West Coast, and they will tell you it is the Holy Grail because they can't get it. Yeah. And it is that good.
At one point, it was the Holy Grail for us as well.
It used to be.
It would, when we grew up in the Bay Area.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. I remember it. I swear to you, people, it was like doing a drug deal. You would hear about a bottle shop that had it or a grocery store that somehow would get it sometimes. And you had to go and talk to their beer guy and just like, hey, man, I heard you've got Pliny's. And they'd be like, oh, is this a narc? They'd be like, who told, what are you talking about, man? They'd get all angry, be like, no, man, no, Dave told me I got to ask for Billy, man. You're Billy, right? And then it'd be like, all right, you can have one. And they'd like take you in the back. It was a whole thing. Stephanie, for my birthday one year, Squee Mama on the Discord server, Stephanie, my wife, 1 year when we were in San Jose, this was back in maybe 2011, 2012, Stephanie spent 3 days going around to places that would only sell her one bottle at a time to put together a 12-pack for me for my birthday.
Wow.
And that was in the Bay Area of California. And it was amazing. And if you look at the rest of the country, it's still that way in a lot of places. They hear about it. People will drive a long distance to go get it. We, every now and again, have somebody that will send a bottle or two out to them, become a patron. Maybe you'll find a Pliny. No guarantees.
Yeah.
But maybe, right? And so Pliny the Elder, here's what was significant. Once you started getting up into those higher ABVs that of the standard they were setting, the double IPA, Pliny the Elder is 8%. Mm-hmm. And going by those traditional brewing methods with the hops that we had at the time that we were using, there is a limit to how much malt you can extract into a liquid. At some point, you're getting less efficient extraction. So you're putting in more malt and getting smaller and smaller amounts of fermentable sugar. And you're creating a liquid that's hard for yeast to live in and produce clean flavors without working hard at producing off flavors. And so what do? Well, so this is where we're looking at the recipe, which anyone can find the recipe. Vinny published it. And he said, hey, everyone, go ahead and try to make it. It's an expensive beer. Not a lot of people took him up on it, but they were using a variety of malts, using some two-row, caramel, Carapil's dextrin malt. And then he used something that was a little bit unique, corn sugar. Adding in that corn sugar did not add malt character, didn't affect the flavor or in minimal ways. If anybody's had fermented corn sugar before, it's light. It has a little bit of a flavor you can detect, but with those other malts, you really couldn't detect the corn sugar flavor, but it allowed him to kick up that ABV in a way that didn't stress the yeast, didn't overburden the malt backbone. And so that's what allowed him to get up there. And then as far as hops, right, we're using Columbus, Simcoe, and Centennial, but he was using them repeatedly throughout. So during the boil, the earlier you put them in, the more bitterness you're going to get and the less of the flavors and aromas. So he would start off very early, a long boil, 90 minutes. That's a long boil for a beer. Mm-hmm. Start off right at the beginning, throwing some hops in, right? Get to 50 minutes, throw some hops in. 45 minutes, throw some in. 30, throw them in again. 15, flame out, throw some more in. Then get it into the fermenters. At 5 days, more hops in the dry hop. 13 days, more hops in the dry hop. This was not how we were brewing beer at the time. We weren't doing it. But this method of adding the corn sugar to boost up the ABV and doing these multiple hop additions are what allowed us to get that hop character that wasn't just bitterness. There was so much more aroma and flavor and all of this in it. And that is what made Pliny the Elder so unique. And that's what set the style. And again, 8%. What's a double IPA today? 7.5 to 10 is the range for a double officially. 8%, low end of the range. Each one of these that set the standard were low end of the range, but they set these new categories, right? Now, there are a lot of other big name double IPAs that came out West Coast style. I'm holding one here called the Denogonizer.
Mm-hmm.
This is one I want to say came out in the late 2000s. I know it won its first award in 2009. I don't know how long before that it was. This is Drake's Brewing, the Denogonizer, 91 IBUs. And if you know about IBUs, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's a lot of bitterness.
Because
that's a lot of alpha acid.
Back before I even knew what Drake's was, you know, like the ones that I thought were like the kind of like the bitter overlords was Ninkasi with their total domination and Tricera hops, like the
Tricera hops.
Total dominate. And what's funny is both of those beers, they're not even that far apart in IBUs, only by a few points.
Yeah.
But like the total domination is like 80 IBUs. And I think Tricera hops is like 83 or 84 IBUs. So bitter. And then you have Drake's coming in swinging, blowing those out of the water with the Denogonizer, and named rightfully so. Like the first time I had the Denogonizer, I got just from the bitterness alone, like I almost fell back off my chair.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's no joke with the and that's what we were doing out on the West Coast. We were pushing the limits. How much bitterness can you do? How can we bring this malt character up and into balance with this super bitter beers? Still get some hop character. It was experimentation. It was pushing the boundaries. Yeah. And Nick, I know back during those days when I don't know. Do you want to call them the bitterness wars? Maybe. But that's kind of what was happening. People were pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, and that's actually what happened was I just stopped drinking IPAs for a while. I got so burnt out on that bitterness that I was just like, nope, I can't do this anymore.
Well,
And then I moved to stouts and porters and
and
brown ales.
people talked about, where does it end?
Yeah.
And we started really experimenting with, well, at what point can you no longer detect any additional bitterness? And at what point have you blown your taste buds out so much that there's no point in eating or drinking anything else for the rest of the night?
Pretty much. Like
right?
nothing was getting rid of that out of your mouth.
No.
Literally nothing.
You wake up the next morning with that bitterness in your mouth.
You could drink rubbing alcohol and you'd still have the bitterness in your mouth the next morning.
Yes, absolutely. And so we pushed that limit. And Nick, as you were saying, the Tricera hops at what is it, 83, something like that?
84.
84. That's a massive amount of bitterness.
Yeah.
Almost nothing today is coming in at those numbers.
No.
Just nothing.
Everything I've seen nowadays is like 75 or lower.
Yeah. Well, and here's an interesting thing. We have very different hops now, right? We see some of the stuff coming out, peacherine and things like that, which are super low alpha acids. They've got their, they've got their flavonoids and their terpenes dialed in and so just isolated. I mean, we're getting these hops that have characteristics that are so out of balance with what was available at that time. But what a lot of people don't realize is we have different malts now too. And so with malt, traditionally, you need a certain amount of enzymes that while you're mashing, those enzymes are going to convert a lot of the starches and sugars into something the yeast can eat and turn into alcohol. And different malts have different amounts of those enzymes. And so when you wanted to push for those really high ABVs, you needed to be using certain malts that had sufficient quantities of those enzymes to convert all the starch in their own malts, but also to make up for the lack of enzymes in these other malts. And so you ended up with these heavy malt characters. Well, now we've got a 2-row malt, which you will find in the silo at every brewery, that has a super high enzyme level. And so we're now able to make these much cleaner, more background malt bills that don't have those heavy malt characters, but that still have enough enzyme to convert all the sugars and get you a higher ABV without adding that, kind of heavy character to it.
Yeah.
And Nick, with a combination of real fruity hops and a lighter malt character, what came next? What did we go to after we crashed that hop train of West Coast IPAs into the ocean? Where did it go?
I think things got a little juicy.
Little juicy.
Little juicy.
Stuff got a little hazy.
A little hazy, a little juicy. We went back to those citrusy flavors.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful citrusy flavors. Citra came on the scene.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Just like kicked the door in, started slapping people in the mouth. It was a whole thing. And then it took off from there. Just all of these new hops coming out. And as we've talked about before, these New Zealand hops that are constantly hitting the scene now. Australia's got a couple coming out, just amazing flavors. And so we switched to that Northeast New England hazy, juicy style. And here's the thing. I can sit here and hold up for you the exemplar pale ale that I say started it all. The exemplar IPA that I say started it all, set the style. The exemplar double IPA started it all. And multiple other examples of going to extremes, what have you like that, the California style PNW. I don't know who started that Northeast New England hazy juicy. There are some big players now who are bigger names, but realistically, there's not, as far as I know, I can't hold up one and say, this is the one that started this style, because I feel like it arose kind of collectively with what we're in with, well, we're kind of moving out of the third wave craft beer, where it was less of this one brewery coming up with the thing and setting the style and more of, hey, this is a thing that's happening regionally and we're all jumping into it. But there are some big names. Nick, who are the big names?
Trillium. Treehouse. Both of those are from Massachusetts.
Treehouse.
Other half in, is it Other Half? Yeah, Other Half in New York.
Sure.
Brooklyn.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head that are the OG
Yeah.
New England IPA guys. But
And those guys, what were the years they started kicking off, Nick?
I think it was the early 2010s, somewhere around there, like 2011, 2013.
Yeah.
It's probably this might require a part 2 episode to talk about moving from, like you have, we've talked about the pale ales, IPA, double IPA, triple IPA. But then, I think a part 2, we should probably discuss a West Coast and New England.
I really feel like we need to
we
dive in
definitely
there.
should. Absolutely.
And the crazy thing is, those guys were getting started. But again, Nick, you and I, we were out here on the West.
Yeah.
And those guys were getting started over in the Northeast. And I feel like the first time I heard of this hazy style, 2015, 2016 is when I first heard of it. And somebody came to me and they were like, this is going to be the next thing. And we need to get hip to this. Talking about Brewing and all of this. And I thought, I don't know what you're talking about, man. This sounds a hazy beer. Somebody forgot to clear their beer. What's going on here? That sounds lazy. But he came and he's like, this, you got to get hip to it. It's going to be the next thing.
Yep.
And then I don't think I saw him for several years.
Boom.
But it was all happening. And then again, kicking indoors, slapping beers out of people's hands and saying, hey, I'm here now. And so, yeah, Nick, I think you're right. We should probably do another episode where we do a deep dive into where that came from and what it's done to us now. But
absolutely.
And to bring it back around to the double IPA, the reason I wanted to talk about it is because this Voodoo Ranger double IPA, Imperial IPA, right? This is now mass produced, nationally available. It's done at mass production prices. And so whereas before we're looking at, you're paying more because there's a lot more malt and a lot more hops going into this beer. And you got to get it out there fresh, right? Because the hop character breaks down fast. And so we're paying quite a bit more if you want to have one of these. Not so anymore. New Belgium is putting out a 9% beer in the stovepipe. What's this? $3-4? Like, it's not that much. This is an inexpensive beer. 9%.
It's
what
surprisingly
I heard somebody call
cheap.
it? I heard somebody say, is this the new malt liquor? Meaning the new high
40s.
alcohol, low cost. That's just if you need to get messed up, this is the way to go.
I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think the stovepipe can came about more for being sold at sports arenas and stadiums.
Did it really?
Because I've been seeing the stovepipe style, the large can, 19, would you say 19.2 ounces?
Yeah, 19.2.
At, like, say, for example, like Sharks games in San Jose, they've been selling those cans probably the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And I think it's a means for them to, because, they were already charging a lot of money for beer, but when it's in a can, you see a giant can rather than a cup and full of beer, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's only $20. Okay, I don't have a problem dropping $20 on that, or whatever it is. I'm sure they're charging probably like $25 from now.
25, yeah, you're paying more than $1 an ounce.
Like, you literally have this giant can of beer that more often than not lasted me through the first period.
Sure.
So, but I'm pretty sure that's why that size came about, is for sports events.
And here's what I'll say. Is this a new malt liquor? No, it's not. No, it's not. It's just not.
It's not malt liquor.
It's not malt liquor to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Does it have a lot of alcohol? Sure. Is it low cost? Absolutely. But do you know what has more alcohol and a lower cost? Mad Dog 2020, right? At the end of the day, if you're just here to get messed up cheap, you're going to go buy some MD Twomp, right? Get some of that Mad Dog 2020, Twinkie, and get crazy. You're not going to reach for this.
No.
What I say this is doing is this is bringing access to a certain style of beer to people who otherwise wouldn't have access to it.
For sure.
Because it is I'll grant you it has a lighter malt character and it has less bitterness, but it's closer to a West Coast style than it is to a lot of the hazies and juicies that are out there. And so this is bringing national access to a style that you may not get otherwise. So no, I don't think we should dismiss it as, oh, this is just the new malt lick. It's not, right? It's just not.
Definitely.
It's a good beer by a good brewery who put their time in. They earned it. And I'm glad it's here. Am I going to reach for it every time? No. I mean, you can see anybody who's watching at home, this one's unopened. The one I cracked was the denogonizer because I wanted to blow my taste buds out and not taste anything for the next week. But I wanted a little walk down memory lane there. But, again, each one of these has their place, and they have their place in history, and they have their place in my heart. And so I wanted to spend a little time talking about that. And Nick, like you said, let's do another episode where we jump into that
West Coast
New
versus
England
East
style.
Coast.
Oh man, I'll tell you what, I'd love to do some side by sides on that. I'm going to need some of our Eastern friends to ship us out a couple of samples that we can
East
get into.
meets West.
That's right. Anybody out there by Treehouse or Trillium or Other Half or any of those, man, you feel free to put some of those cans in the mail.
Yeah. Reach out to us. I'll send you my address.
That's right. That's right. Well, speaking of ways to contact us, Nick, how do people find us?
HoppyTrailsPod.com.
Very easy.
So
Very
easy.
simple.
So easy. And
it's what we are.
Such an easy page to navigate. Even a monkey could do it.
Yes, even a monkey could do it.
A drunk monkey.
You get to all of our stuff, our Instagram, our other stuff. What else do we
link
have?
to Maui Brewing Company's page that lists
That's
out
an
all
important
the breweries that are participating in the Kokuru project.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's an option to reach out to us via email, our Instagram account, the many different platforms that you can listen to us, our sultry voices, and yeah.
And I do want to shout out again to Carlos.
One day there will be a phone number.
Oh,
you can call.
Just breathe heavily into it. Yeah. Just like that. We'll get
whatever you want to do.
Here.
I think it would be fun to get some messages, especially some drunk ones.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, all that goodness. And yeah.
And shout out again to Carlos. Carlos is our highest level patron. Really appreciate it. Look, everybody, consider throwing us a couple of bucks. It's the type of thing that allows us to keep this free for everybody. We love doing it. It costs us money, but it's money that we spend because we enjoy doing this. The more you can contribute, the more we can cover those costs, the more we can put stuff to maybe a road trip to come see you, maybe doing this or that or the other thing, more merch that we can throw out to people.
Exactly. Share, whatever items that we encounter that we think other people, especially people that give the love back to us, that we can share with them. So
absolutely. Nick, I think we've covered everything. Well, I do want to mention we are about to be up in Sacramento. So by the time everybody hears this, the weekend after this comes out, we're going to be up in Sacramento. Is that right? Do I have our calendar correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
And then we got
we're going to be up in Sacramento
ASAP to release the following Friday.
We're going to do some recording while we're up there.
Yeah, we're going to do some recording while we're there. We got a few different cameras, so we'll probably capture a lot more video and everything. And
yes, we will.
This is going to be, it's not a beer and chili cook-off anymore, but we're going to have a lot of fun at Lefty's Tap Room.
Absolutely, we will.
Whatever other shenanigans we can get into for about 18 hours. So,
and listen, if you're in the area, if you are going to be in the area, 100%, please come hit us up. We are going to be at Lefty's on the 30th, September 30th. We will be at Lefty's. So if you want to come see us and you want to hang out and you want to either watch us do some recording, or if you want to jump on and say hello on the show, come out, meet us at Lefty's in the afternoon. We're going to be there. We're going to be hanging out.
Yeah. Come on out.
Well, with that, Nick, I think the only thing that we have left to do is remind everybody to always say yes to that hoppy ending.
Always say yes.
Cheers.
Cheers.
The preceding podcast was produced by Sequoia Productions, LLC, copyright 2022, all rights reserved. If you enjoyed this show and you're looking for more, or even if you're looking for something a little different, check out the other amazing shows by Sequoia Productions, wherever you get your podcasts, or on sequoia.com.
Hoppy trails to brew until we drink again. Hoppy trails to brew. Keep sharing with your friends. Who cares about which IPA tastes better? ABV are just a couple letters. Hoppy trails to brews until we